It was late evening in a quiet little town in America. The kind of town where everyone knows each other by name, where gossip spreads faster than the morning paper, and where strangers are noticed immediately. That night, the rain poured down hard, soaking the sidewalks and hammering on the tin roofs. Most people were already at home, eating dinner with their families, or sitting in front of the television, avoiding the weather. But Daniel wasn't one of them. Daniel was still at his garage. He was a mechanic by trade, and not just any mechanic. He was known as the guy who wouldn't cheat you, who wouldn't cut corners, who would work late if that's what it took to make sure your car was safe to drive. His hands were blistered and stained with grease, but his heart was clean. He was just shutting the lights off when he noticed something unusual. Across the street, barely visible under the dim glow of the street lamp, stood a man. His clothes were damp and wrinkled, his shoulders hunched against the cold. He wasn't panhandling, he wasn't begging. He was just standing there, watching, shivering. Daniel hesitated. His first thought? Keep walking. Not your problem. After all, he'd worked all day. He was tired, and his sister Emily was expecting him for dinner. But something inside him made him pause. He remembered his father's words from years ago. Son, when you see someone down, you either walk away and let them stay down, or you reach out and give them a hand. You choose the man you want to be. Daniel sighed and walked toward the stranger. Hey, you alright? You look like you've been out here a while. The man startled, as if he wasn't used to being spoken to kindly. His eyes darted to the ground. I'll be fine, he muttered quickly. Don't trouble yourself. But Daniel could see he was anything but fine. The man's lips were trembling from the cold. His shoes looked like they'd been through a dozen winters. And there was something in his eyes, something heavy, like a man carrying more than just the weight of the rain on his shoulders. Daniel hesitated again. Letting a stranger in wasn't exactly safe. He knew that, but his conscience wouldn't let him walk away. So, against every cautious thought running through his mind, Daniel pulled out his keys. Come on in. I've got some leftover stew inside. You can dry off, rest up, just for tonight. The man's eyes flickered with hesitation, then with something that looked almost like relief. Slowly, he nodded. And just like that, Daniel opened his office door, and a complete stranger stepped into his life. But what Daniel didn't realize was this single act of kindness was about to test everything he believed in. Because sometimes, kindness doesn't get rewarded with gratitude. Sometimes, it comes back with suspicion. But Daniel will soon begin to wonder if he made a mistake. Did he just help someone in need? Or did he bring trouble straight to his own doorstep? The next morning, Daniel's sister, Emily, stopped by with her usual habit of bringing coffee and muffins. But the second she saw the stranger sitting quietly in the corner of Daniel's office, her smile faded. Who is that? She whispered sharply, pulling Daniel aside. Just someone who needed a place to stay, Daniel said calmly. He was out in the rain last night. Looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Emily frowned. Daniel, you don't know this guy. You can't just invite strangers in. What if he steals from you? What if he hurts you? Daniel tried to brush it off, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. And she wasn't the only one. By noon, word had already spread through town. In a place that's small, nothing stayed secret for long. A couple of customers brought it up too. You're too trusting, Daniel, one man said while picking up his car. You let someone like that in, you're asking for trouble. These people will take advantage, another woman added. We'll see. Kindness doesn't mean they'll be kind back. At first, Daniel ignored them. He believed in giving people a chance. But soon, little things started to make him uneasy. One night, he opened his wallet and noticed a $20 bill missing. He couldn't remember if he had spent it or if it had been there at all, but the thought gnawed at him. Another night, he woke up and realized the man was gone. The cot in the corner was empty. Daniel stepped outside and saw the stranger walking down the street under the moonlight, his figure disappearing into the dark. What was he doing at that hour? Where was he going? Daniel couldn't ignore the whispers anymore. Was Emily right? Were the townspeople right? He had let this man into his world, but had he opened the door to danger? The uneasiness grew, and so did the doubts. Every small thing began to look suspicious. Every unexplained moment made Daniel wonder if he had been naive. But little did Daniel know, the truth about this stranger was far different than he imagined. But when Daniel finally decides to follow him one night, what he discovers will not only shock him, it will challenge everything he thought he knew about kindness, trust, and second chances. Daniel had spent days wrestling with doubt. He wanted to believe he had done the right thing, but the uneasiness wouldn't let him rest. Every night when he lay in bed, his mind replayed the same questions. Why had money gone missing? Why was the stranger sneaking out so late? And most of all, had he been a fool to trust him? Finally, one night, Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He heard the faint creak of the office door and the sound of footsteps moving away. He got out of bed quietly, slipped on his boots, and followed. The rain had eased to a drizzle, the streets empty and quiet, except for the hum of a few neon lights from a diner at the corner. From a distance, Daniel saw the man, his guest, his mystery, walking quickly down the street with his head lowered. Daniel's heart pounded. Every step felt heavier. He didn't know what he was about to uncover. The man entered the diner, and Daniel, careful not to be seen, stood by the window. Inside, he expected to see him stealing, maybe scamming customers, maybe asking for handouts. But what Daniel actually saw left him frozen. The man had put on an apron. He was wiping down tables, sweeping floors, and even washing dishes in the back. He wasn't stealing. He was working. Daniel pressed his hand against the glass, stunned. All this time, while Daniel had been suspecting the worst, this man was earning every dollar he could, late at night, when no one was watching. It wasn't until after midnight that the diner closed and the man finally stepped outside. Daniel walked toward him. The man startled, almost dropping the small envelope he was holding. Daniel's voice was steady but full of emotion. "Why didn't you just tell me?" The man looked down, ashamed. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Because you've already done too much for me. I couldn't ask for more." He paused, then continued. "My name is Mark. I used to be someone. I had a business, employees, even a family. But when my company collapsed, I lost everything. My home, my reputation, and worst of all, my daughter. She stopped talking to me. I couldn't face her, so I just disappeared." Daniel's chest tightened. He had expected excuses, maybe lies. But instead, what he heard was raw truth. Mark continued, holding up the envelope. "The money you thought was missing? I've been leaving it in small amounts on your table. I've been working here at night to pay you back. I don't want to owe anyone. Not even kindness." Daniel stood in silence, the weight of his doubts crushing him. This whole time, while everyone in town had warned him, while his own sister had doubted his judgment, Mark had been trying to do the right thing. Quietly, humbly, without asking for praise. Daniel swallowed hard. He realized he had misjudged a man who had already been judged enough by life. But this wasn't the end of Mark's story. Because behind the tired eyes and the late-night work was something deeper, something broken that still needed healing. Soon, the truth about Mark's daughter will come to light. Daniel will face the biggest question of all. Can kindness not only help a stranger survive, but also help a father rebuild what he thought was lost forever? For the first time since he had opened his doors to Mark, Daniel felt the full weight of what this man had been carrying. And it wasn't just the shabby clothes, the long nights, or the shame of losing a business. It was something much heavier, the pain of losing his daughter. The next evening, as the rain tapped gently on the shop windows, Daniel sat with Mark in the small office of his garage. The two men shared a simple meal of reheated leftovers. There was a silence between them, but not the awkward kind. More like the silence of someone gathering the courage to say what they've been holding in for years. Finally, Mark spoke, his voice low and trembling. "Daniel, you were right. I should have told you from the start. The truth is, I'm not just some drifter. I had a life once. I had people who loved me, and I threw it all away when my business collapsed. I thought I was invincible. I thought I was building something my daughter could be proud of. But when everything crumbled, I didn't just lose my company, I lost myself." Daniel leaned forward, listening. He could see the shame etched into every line on Mark's face. Mark pulled a small, worn photo from his wallet and slid it across the table. It was of a young girl, maybe in her late teens, smiling brightly in a graduation gown. "This is Anna," Mark whispered, his eyes glistening. "My daughter. I haven't seen her in years. She doesn't even know if I'm alive. And maybe she's better off not knowing." Daniel picked up the photo and studied it. He didn't see a reason for shame. He saw a reason for hope. "Mark," he said firmly, "you're wrong. She deserves to know the truth. You're her father. That bond doesn't just disappear, no matter how long it's been." But Mark shook his head, his hands trembling. "How do I face her, Daniel? How do I explain the years I wasn't there? How do I ask for forgiveness I don't deserve?" His voice broke as he added, "I've been saving every dollar I can, hoping that one day, maybe I could at least look her in the eye and tell her I tried. That's what I've been working for at the diner. Not just to pay you back, but to gather the courage to face her." And then the mystery of the missing money finally made sense. That envelope Daniel had once suspected as stolen? It wasn't theft, it was repayment. Mark had been secretly leaving small amounts on Daniel's desk whenever he could. Quietly, without a word, he had been trying to make things right in the only way he knew how. Daniel's heart sank with guilt. He remembered every doubt he'd had, every warning he'd listened to, every whisper in town that had painted Mark as nothing more than a burden. He realized now that kindness, even when questioned, had revealed the truth of a man's heart. But Daniel also realized something else. Mark would never take the next step alone. He would never have the courage to face his daughter without someone pushing him forward. And Daniel knew what he had to do. But how do you convince a man who has lost all faith in himself to take the hardest step of his life? And will Anna even be willing to listen when her father shows up after years of silence? The following weekend, Daniel made up his mind. He wasn't going to let Mark live in the shadows of his past any longer. It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind of morning that smelled of fresh coffee and cut grass. Daniel knocked on the office door where Mark had been sleeping the last few weeks. Mark looked tired but calmer now, his eyes less restless since opening up about his past. Daniel held out the photo of Anna. "Mark," he said firmly, "it's time. You can't keep saving scraps of money and hoping for a someday. Someday has to be today." Mark froze. His hands tightened on the photo. "Daniel, I can't. What if she slams the door in my face? What if she hates me?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then at least you'll know. But what if she doesn't? What if she's been waiting all this time, just like you've been waiting? You'll never find out unless you try." Hours later, Daniel found himself driving Mark across town. The ride was quiet, heavy with unspoken fear. Mark fidgeted with the envelope of money he had saved, the small collection of bills meant to show his daughter he had been working, not wasting away. When they pulled up outside a modest suburban house, Mark's breath caught. There she was, Anna, watering the small garden in front of her porch. She looked older than the photo, her hair longer, her frame taller. But the smile Daniel had seen in the picture was unmistakable. Mark couldn't move. His whole body shook as he whispered, "I can't do this." Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. "You've come this far. Don't let fear stop you now. I'll be right here." With trembling legs, Mark stepped out of the car. Anna looked up, confused at first, then her eyes widened. She dropped the watering can, water spilling onto the driveway. "Dad." The word hung in the air, fragile, uncertain. Mark's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, his voice breaking. "It's me, Anna. I'm so sorry. I should have been here. I should have fought harder. But I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." For a long moment, there was silence. Daniel held his breath, praying Anna wouldn't turn away. And then, she ran to him. She threw her arms around her father, sobbing into his chest. "I thought you were gone forever. I thought you didn't want me anymore." Mark clung to her, his own tears streaming down his face. "No, sweetheart. I was just lost. And I've been trying every day to find my way back to you." From the car, Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had seen a lot of broken engines in his life, but never had he seen something this broken come back together so beautifully. In the days that followed, Mark stayed with Anna, slowly rebuilding the bond they thought was gone. With Daniel's encouragement, he started applying for stable work again, this time not as a businessman chasing success, but as a man determined to be present, reliable, and worthy of the second chance he'd been given. Daniel's sister, Emily, who had once warned him about bringing a stranger in, came by one afternoon. She stood quietly in the shop, watching Mark and Anna laugh together outside. Turning to Daniel, she whispered, "You were right. Kindness really can change everything." Daniel smiled, wiping his hands on a rag. It doesn't always look like it at first, but it always plants a seed. And sometimes, it grows into something more than you could ever imagine. And so, the man everyone had doubted, the stranger no one trusted, found his way back home. Not because of suspicion, not because of judgment, but because one person chose kindness even when it seemed like the wrong choice. The story ends not with a mechanic who gave too much, or a stranger who took advantage, but with two men who discovered the truth. Kindness is never truly wasted. Even when it feels misplaced, it can heal wounds you may never see. And sometimes, it can lead someone home. Moral of this story reminds us of something powerful. Kindness is never wasted. Even when it feels like it's been given to the wrong person, it can touch lives in ways we can't always see. A simple act of compassion can be the spark that helps someone rebuild, reunite, or find their way home. And sometimes, the very people we doubt the most are the ones who need our kindness the most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the power of second chances, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Because at the end of the day, we're not just telling stories, we're changing lives.